Well, I'm just trying you again, Melanie. Sorry, guys, for anyone who's trying to watch. We've got a few technical issues getting Melanie on. We had it and we froze. Let's see if we've got you again. Right, bring you onto camera. Okay, adding you now. Hopefully we have better luck. Okay. You're back.
Back again.
Right.
Third time's the charm.
Let's get this done. Right. Thank you ever so much for joining us, Melanie.
Thanks for having me.
Really, that's my pleasure. Really appreciate it. So I've been asked lots of times about pop-ups, and every now and again I'll share ideas. But obviously you're in the tribe, you're in my group, and I've chatted to you on and offline and discovered a bit about your story. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to share some tips and insights from your experience with other group members.
Yeah, happy to.
Because we've got a mix of members in the group. Great. Some are purely online who are thinking about maybe doing pop-ups or maybe going to bricks and mortar. It's a big step, so we'll get straight into it. So why did you choose to do pop-ups and not stay online or go straight to bricks and mortar?
Well, the business started, I was actually still working in my full-time 9-to-5 job. So pop-ups allowed me to do that on weekends and during my annual leave and other things and around working a corporate job. Yeah. But
Right.
Essentially working with food, as we're primarily in consumable things, there's obviously an expiration date on those. And we weren't getting enough traffic just with the website alone to turn through that stock before we were needing to sort of discount it to get rid of it or cook it at home.
Sure.
So
yeah, it might be worth you explaining a little bit about what you sell, Melanie. Sorry, I forgot to introduce your business. Tell the viewers a bit about what it is you sell.
So we're now in store with a sort of market location in Melbourne's inner north. All of our products are Australian made, so a lot of small batch producers, third and fourth and some fifth generation farmers that are now finally coming to market with a value-added product and their own brand rather than just supplying to restaurants and as ingredients in other manufactured goods. So some things that people recognise, we've got Mount Zero and Philippa's, which is a kind of big bakery name here in Melbourne, right down to really tiny things that are just coming to market that have been brought to fruition by husbands and wives and bakers and people that are sort of finally finding their passion in their food and bringing things sort of to light. So yeah, we just sort of wanted to provide an opportunity for those things to have another outlet and be more readily available. We lived in the city, very close to Lygon Street and in amongst Melbourne's food and coffee culture. And then we're responsible adults and moved out to the burbs and realised how hard it was to actually get a hold of some of these amazing things that were only 20, 30 k's down the road, but we couldn't buy them where we were and we couldn't get to markets on weekends and all of that sort of thing. So it sort of grew from that in wanting to be able to get more of the things we loved and couldn't. And now that we've got the space in a retail sense, we're not sort of trying to operate out of spare rooms and garages. It's meant that we've been able to bring more of those things on board. So
fab. Okay, so how did you choose the locations for your pop-ups? Did you just look for market locations and just go for anything, or were you a little bit more strategic about it?
Well, we wanted to initially be in amongst the food markets, but because we don't actually produce any food ourselves, we weren't able to get onto sort of the farmers market circuit, although our product offering aligned really well with it at that point. So what we found was that the kind of easiest, the least commitment that we could make in terms of doing just single days or single weekends at a time was more in the gifting space and the artisan craft space. So our very first pop-up was alongside jewelers and artists and illustrators making cards. So we were then in front of an audience that was appreciative of things that were handcrafted, and typically cost a bit more because they are painstakingly time consuming. But we were really the only people with multiple foods. So there were the occasional, say, product that we would typically stock that might have been at a market doing a tasting and sort of promoting things for either Christmas or Mother's Day. But in terms of having a range of, say, hot chocolate and cordial and chocolate and spices and honey and tea, like to have an actual collection of things, we were quite unique in that sense. So we stood out and it worked for us, but it did mean then that people were far more focused on the gifting side of things rather than just the nice grocery shop
purchasing for themselves. Yeah, sure. Interesting. Okay, so something I always impress upon online businesses is to get offline, because I mean, I've done it myself and I know the many advantages to getting offline and meeting your customers. But what did you learn from your customers about your own products by doing pop-ups that you couldn't have learned or didn't learn when you were purely online?
There's a lot to be gained from seeing how people interact with your display, and that kind of gives you a lot of direction to on merchandising and even just how to lay out your pop-ups and things. But even to how people would speak to the people that they were shopping with, which at markets and those kind of things is often common. People are out for a day of relaxing, they might go shopping with their sister or their mum, and they're just sort of there to hang out, and joining that conversation and being part of that really helps to understand who they're shopping for and why, what their sort of price limits are in terms of, oh, that's really nice, but maybe for Christmas, or, maybe for something bigger down the track. And
just great feedback for you.
Yeah, and knowing more what people are looking for and being able to then adapt and pivot and expand, add things to the range. We even found from postcode to postcode what was popular on each market varied. So in the inner west suburbs, we were selling more of the teas and the chais and the vegan products, and then we get to the CBD and everybody was after something a little bit different. So we were always sort of surprised a little bit by what turned out to be the thing of the day. But there were definitely patterns that ran in that. So, yeah.
That's great.
Always data to be collected.
Sort of and exactly about collecting that data, taking note of that, listening to the conversations and engaging with the customers, which is very difficult to do from a website. There's only so much information you can gather about a person. Exactly.
It's really hard to get people to fill out surveys.
To fill out what? Surveys? Yeah,
it's really hard to get people to fill out surveys online, but it's really easy to weave a couple of questions. So if you sort of start the day knowing what you want answered and what you're looking for, and you can sort of weave that into a few conversations, it's so much more of a genuine response too, because people don't have time to think about it and craft a reply to type it out. It's just that really honest, instant sort of feedback, which you can't pay for.
No, that's a great tip, actually, going with something in mind. So perhaps if you've got a new line or you're considering bringing something in, you could say, would you be interested in buying such and such? And what do you think of the price of this? And go with something particular in mind. Do your research on that. That's a great tip. Fab.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think was the most successful part of your pop-up?
Definitely the information that we gained back. There were some days that the effort and the time and everything that went into planning it was definitely not, we didn't get the return on investment on some market days, but just knowing, and even just in the way that our setup changed and the way we displayed things. We started out, the first one was just a trestle table, and we found that to be very sort of dividing between us and the traffic. So the next couple, we sort of worked on creating displays that made the most of the floor space by allowing people to step out of the flow of traffic and into our little
Great.
nook. So a lot of that kind of logistical marketing sort of stuff in terms of how we presented and how it looked and where signage was so that people could actually see it as they were coming down the main centerway, that kind of thing. So yeah, there was a lot more sort of spatial awareness and that kind of presentation element that we kind of refined along the way, on top of the obviously interactions that we're able to have with customers on their way past.
Yeah, and again, it's a great point. Pop-up locations are very different to a static bricks and mortar. And the positioning of your signage, like you say, considering the flow of the traffic, where are people walking from and to, what's going to catch their eye, and making it really simple for them to see what you've got on offer, and quite often the prices or information about them, because as you know, in a busy marketplace, sometimes it is a glance that catches their eye. But if things are tucked away, they're not in a shop where they're enclosed and they're browsing, and it's a less hectic environment, I suppose, than a market. So yeah, great. Okay, so if you did a pop-up again, I know you probably won't now, but if you did do a pop-up again, have you got any sort of tips for our listeners as to what you might do differently next time?
For where we are in our stage of the business now, we're sort of coming up on 2 years this June. Any pop-ups that we did moving forward would probably be more of a collaborative thing. So I'd probably look at having maybe one of the brands that we have and have them sort of run a little chai bar or a little cafe with the coffee beans or whatever, and sort of have 2 or 3 others sort of involved and have a little bit more control over it. We did do shopping centre pop-ups for Christmas on our own, and coincidentally it sort of the pieces all fell together really nicely. We actually ended up sharing a 5 by 5 metre space with another company that actually sold just cosmetics. So we just sold food and they just sold cosmetics. But a lot of people sort of mistook us for them and vice versa, because our presentation and our packaging and our, we were all standing in very similar cargo crew aprons with our brand logos on them. But a lot of people would sort of pick things up off their shelves and come to pay me for them, or vice versa. So I think that by having them there, we looked twice as big as we were. It helped gain people's attention in a really big shopping centre the 10 days before Christmas, that kind of thing. So I think there's a value in finding other similar brands or businesses to yourself that are really complementary. And, it might be in future for us that it's a high street pop-up for something seasonal, but that we would do it in conjunction with 2 or 3 others just to get the best exposure and, divide the labour that needs to be sort of invested in manning these things and keeping them running.
Yeah, which is not to be underestimated. And I always, suggest to people, if you're going to do a pop-up, see if you can collaborate with someone else. I've got a client who has shoes, quite high-end leather shoes. And to me, if you can collaborate with another fashion accessory, like you say, divides the cost of the actual pitch, your time. You can leave the stall for 10 minutes to go and grab a drink and the toilet stop, and not be on it, because it is full on. It's tiring. I've been there, done it. So yeah, I know how time consuming it can be. So it is great. And just having a friendly person with you, just to sort of, bounce some ideas off or help each other out is great. So that's fantastic that you've done that. And again, any listeners, I love collaborations, but it's for a reason. And like Melanie said, in a busy shopping centre, you've got to stand out. And if you've got one tiny little thing and you maybe haven't got a lot of stock yourself, then adding to that is great. But useful to highlight that, the branding was important to differentiate you both. For future. But I think for a short period up until Christmas, You know, you probably got away with it. It was, you know, it was okay because it was about selling stock.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe if you did it again, you'd consider the brand building element of it, or capturing customer data to get them back again. But fantastic. Great. Thanks, Melanie. So how did doing pop-ups prepare you for going to bricks and mortar? And did you always have bricks and mortar in mind? Or was it the success of the pop-ups that led you to think, actually, let's do this properly?
It was kind of the pop-ups were a really good testing ground for us to have the confidence to move forward into bricks and mortar. We looked
Yeah.
at, so we'd done sort of the little market ones, and then we'd looked at commercial real estate and swallowed really, really, really terrified by it. Just with a 5-year lease and all of the fit out costs and
Yeah.
things that are expected of the bigger shopping centres. So then we went back and we did some pop-ups at High Point here in Melbourne. And we did one in November for a week and one in December for 15 days. And they were in two different locations, very close together, like in the same area of the centre, but on a different floor. And the differences between the two were astounding. The first week we did was actually Cup Week here in Melbourne. So we probably didn't pick the right calendar dates there either, just between pay cycles for people and the public holiday and things were a little bit abnormal and not quite the usual routine.
Yeah.
But then we actually moved up, and that was sort of in a main thoroughfare. We found people were sort of head down, bum up, and they were going to the supermarket or they were going to the bank. They were on a mission. They weren't there browsing. They weren't in a shopping frame of mind. And then
Yeah.
up one more floor where we were situated between Cocoa Black chocolate and the Apple store, everybody was running at a different pace. And even though it was Christmas and it was hectic and everybody was sort of a little bit more highly strung, it was a far better location, and it just sort of amplified for us the need to be in the right spot and with the right other complementary things.
Yeah.
So we were always looking at like the food nooks and sort of being in amongst delis and you know, the butcher and the greengrocer and things, because we didn't want to be a full service store. We didn't want to be handling the fresh produce and doing those sort of things. So we then looked towards the markets. Obviously in Melbourne there's Queen Vic Market, South Melbourne Market, Prahran Market. They're all sort of the big well-known ones, and even sort of a little bit more of the tourist market at Queen Vic, that kind of thing. And we actually stumbled across where we are now. We hadn't really looked too far north of the city, but then looking back at the delivery addresses from our online orders, we could see that we did have people ordering from us in Brunswick and Thornbury and Coburg, and sort of heading north of the city as well. So I guess the pop-ups at High Point definitely reinforced that we were right in saying we needed to be in the right location, not just any location. And so it kind of meant that we waited that extra sort of 6 to 12 months before signing up for anything.
Yeah.
But then, ultimately we were sort of dictated to a little bit by what was available in that market environment in terms of commercial leases here in Melbourne, because
Sure.
you know, a lot of places you've sort of got a lot of the businesses are handed down from generation to generation. So there's not a lot of shift in availability in what we needed space-wise as well. So, it was a little bit of the pop-ups, a little bit of the data from online, and a little bit of luck that landed us where we are. So, yeah.
But again, you know, you say it's luck, but actually, like you say, you bided your time, you'd done your research, you'd spoken to customers, you'd looked at the data that you'd got from your website, which is all crucial, and you'd have observed customer behaviour. And I always raise an eyebrow at the pop-ups that are right outside a Coles in a mall just near me. And like you say, people are head down. It's mums, it's people are going straight into Coles. They're not interested. And I even stopped and mentioned this to one of them. He said, "Oh, no, because this is the busiest area." I said, yeah, but it's busy because people are literally going straight in. They need to get the
Yeah.
shopping and they're out. They're maybe wrangling kids.
Yeah.
They haven't got time to talk to you.
Mm-mm.
But if you go round the corner, they've done their shopping, they're moseying, their kids want to play on the little, ride things, and
Yeah.
they can breathe again. And
Yeah.
I am more likely to stop, literally just, 20 yards around the corner from it.
Be out of the
Yeah,
hustle and
and
bustle and actually have the space and time to enjoy the
yeah,
experience of shopping, because if you weren't there to experience
yes,
it, then you could just do it online. Yeah, because another
yes,
thing
it's
for us in
exactly,
what
it's
we do is,
quieter.
yeah, and the food, because we are sort of that higher price point and it's small batch and people like to see it and touch it and smell it and experience it, and you can't do that online. So
Yeah,
it's kind of another little
no,
driving force for us to pull our finger out and bite the bullet and
yeah,
open a bricks and mortar
yeah.
store. So yeah, it's
It's
good.
true, and for all we love online shopping, quite often we do want to see it first, or try it, or taste it, or whatever. And the whole experience of, especially in the high-end food market, it is an experience because generally it's displayed beautifully, it's packaged beautifully. We want that experience of being able to see it, and it makes you feel good. It's not just online shopping from your Coles or your Woolies.
Yeah,
It's a nice experience. Hence, people love going to food markets or organic food markets, or those sorts of things. It's the smells and the sounds and the tastes. That's great.
yeah.
Fab. Okay, so obviously we've talked about pop-ups helping you to make the decision on location. So how is it now? Do you think it was a good move? Is bricks and mortar for you now, and you're content that that is where you need to be?
It's definitely the way for growing the business where we want to grow it to. Um,
Yeah.
we had an amazing, we very, very tight time frame last year, but basically got married the last weekend in October and opened the shop 3 weeks later.
Oh,
So
oh.
it
Wedding
was
present.
jump in the deep end and spent the honeymoon fitting out the shop and doing all the renovating and stuff. But we had a really, really
Wow.
bumper Christmas and it was absolutely mental. And then January we knew would always be quiet. That's retail. And so we're just sort of starting to come out now at the 5 6 month mark where we're starting to get more of those repeat customers and a little bit more sort of part of the area, sort of becoming part of the market. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a 45-year-old marketplace, and a lot of people remember shopping there as teenagers and hanging out there after school and that kind of thing. And they're now turning up with their own
Yeah.
kids who are in high school. So it's sort of a longer game thing, and we did sort of sign up for a 3-year lease, and I think that's probably in hindsight was a bit short, just seeing how the first 6 months have panned out. But yeah, bricks and mortar is definitely needs to be part of who we are as a whole. We sort of are working on doing more of the corporate hampers and the settlement gifting and that kind of thing with real estate agents, just to sort of temper out our gifting so that it's not so crazy seasonal with Mother's Day and
Yeah.
Christmas and things. But
Yeah.
yeah, bricks and mortar is definitely a big part of us growing our brand and our presence and the recognition that we get from people and saying, oh, I've seen you somewhere before. I'm sure I've come across you. Where else are you guys? It's amazing how many people we've had in the last 3 months saying, oh, have you got a store in such and such? I'm like, oh, this is it. This is it. This is the whole thing right here. But yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
down the track there will be more stores in and around Melbourne. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's so exciting. So exciting. Thank you ever so much. Guys watching, if you've got any questions, just pop them in the comments box. And either I or Melanie, I'm sure, will pop back in at some point and see if we can answer them. But fantastic insights there, Melanie. I'm so pleased about your progress. It's fantastic. Keep sharing the photographs in the group. I love seeing what you're up to. And I'm hoping to come and see you at some point. I do get to Melbourne, although my next trip is so fleeting, I won't get a chance to come and see you. But I'd love to come and see your shop and yeah, see it for myself. Yeah, it
Awesome.
was Jenny. Yes, awesome tips. Yes, thank you ever so much, Melanie. I won't keep you anymore, and have a fab day.
Thanks, Susie.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Melanie.
See
Bye.
you.
Bye.